Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would like to update the House on the progress being made to deliver Baroness Casey's recommendations following her national audit on group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse, which was published before the summer recess. The sexual exploitation and abuse of children by grooming gangs are the most horrific and despicable crimes. Girls as young as 10 exploited, abused and brutally raped by gangs of men, and then disgracefully let down again and again by the authorities that were meant to protect them. These despicable crimes have caused the most unimaginable harm to victims and survivors throughout their lives and are a stain on our society. Madam Deputy Speaker, Baroness Casey's report chronicled more than a decade of inaction on these appalling crimes by previous governments, despite repeated warnings and recommendations. But this government will not lose any more time in pursuing truth and justice for victims and survivors, who deserve so much better. That's why, on the 16th of June, the Home Secretary made abundantly clear that this government would accept all of the 12 of Baroness Casey's recommendations, including the establishment of a new statutory national inquiry into group-based child sexual exploitation and a new national policing operation to get more perpetrators behind bars. Since then, we have made significant strides in laying the foundations for a robust, survivor-centred national inquiry and establishing a national policing inquiry, while continuing to drive forward the major work streams that were already well underway to tackle these abhorrent crimes. I will first update the House on the progress made to establish a new national policing operation to get perpetrators who exploit, abuse and harm children behind bars where they belong. Today, I can announce that Operation Beaconport has been established. It will be overseen by the National Crime Agency and delivered in partnership with policing, including the National Police Chiefs Council and the CSE Task Force and the Tackling Organised Exploitation Programme. For the very first time, this new national policing operation is bringing together all of the relevant policing partners under one operation to ensure a swift and specialist law enforcement response to grooming gang offending. This collaborative approach is ensuring that long-term investigative capability built across police and best practice is standard, ending an unacceptable postcode lottery for victims and survivors. This new national operation will eliminate inconsistencies on how cases are handled across forces and ensure that there is no hiding place for perpetrators. Victims and survivors are central to this operation, and a trauma-informed practice will be at its core. I have been meeting over the summer with survivors and their support organisations on this issue. This work is already well underway. In January, the Home Secretary asked police forces to identify cases involving grooming and child exploitation that had been closed with no further action, to pursue lines of inquiry and reopen investigations where appropriate. As a result of that commission, 1,273 cases have now been identified for formal review, and with the new national operation has identified 216 highest priority cases that are those involving an allegation of rape, which are being accelerated as a matter of urgency. We expect policing to meticulously pore over these cases and work with associated victims to relentlessly pursue perpetrators who should be behind bars. That includes the ongoing investigation relating to South Yorkshire Police's handling of reports into child sexual abuse and exploitation in Rotherham. Following discussions between the Independent Office for Police Conduct, South Yorkshire Police and the National Crime Agency, I can confirm it has been formally agreed that the investigation will now be carried out by the NCA under the direction and control of the IOPC. Alongside these ongoing reviews, Operation Beaconport will also provide additional support for police forces to conduct complex investigations and to ensure that specialist best practice is being adopted consistently across the country. I want to thank the CSE Task Force for the work they have done in preparing the way forward for these investigations. And I can announce to the House today that in the first year of this government, that we were in office from July 2024 to 2025, the task force contributed to 827 arrests nationwide, an 11% increase on the previous year. To bolster this vital work, I also want to update the House that last month I announced that the Government will be injecting $426,000 of new funding to the Tackling Organised Exploitation programme, which is additional to the $8.8 million we are already investing in the programme this year. The new funding will enable TOEX to extend access to a suite of its cutting-edge investigative apps and digital tools stored within its secure capabilities environment to all police forces in England and Wales. In addition to the 15 police forces which are already utilising TOEX tools, following my announcement of a further investment, a future 10 forces are currently onboarding. The TOEX expansion crucially supports the first phase of Operation Beaconport. Police officers will be able to access the AI-enabled tools to assist with detecting and investigating child sexual abuse and exploitation. This includes TOEX Translate, a tool for bulk translation of foreign language text from seized mobile devices, and has enabled savings of an estimated 25 million so far. And the Data Analysis and Review tool, which analyses large amounts of digital data to identify communications patterns and relationships between suspects. Further announcements on Operation Beaconport will be made by operational partners shortly. A comprehensive update is expected in the coming weeks, setting out the full scope of the operation and the support available to those affected. Madam Deputy Speaker, we will never shy away from the facts in these cases, and so following Baroness Casey's audit, her conclusions on the disproportionate role of Pakistani heritage gangs, and building on the work of the Home Secretary had already commissioned to improve ethnicity data in relation to these crimes, we have also committed to making it a requirement to collect ethnicity and nationality data of suspects who commit child sexual exploitation and abuse offences. The Home Secretary has written to Chief Constables to signal that the current data collection across ethnicity and nationality is unacceptable and that this data must be improved as a matter of urgency. Work is now underway looking to amend the annual data requirement to support this process, and we are also looking at legislative options to drive forward these improvements. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, Baroness Casey recommended the establishment of a new statutory national inquiry that could compel targeted investigations in local areas to get to truth and justice for victims and survivors, and to drive meaningful change in local systems and structures that had failed so many people in the past. I can confirm that the national inquiry into group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse will place victims and survivors firmly at its heart. It will crucially ensure trauma-informed, accessible engagement for victims and survivors that reflects diverse lived experiences and minimises the risk of re-traumatisation. The inquiry will examine how effectively local and national safeguarding systems protected children from group-based sexual exploitation and abuse, and hold institutions accountable for past failures. As the Home Secretary said in June, its purpose must be to challenge what Baroness Casey's audit described as continued denial, resistance and legal wrangling amongst local agencies. The inquiry will consider intersections with ethnicity, race and culture, and assess the safeguarding duties of public services, identifying both failures and examples of good practice. I know that everyone in the House and beyond wants to see the inquiry begin its work at the earliest opportunity. Colleagues will know that this requires the appointment of a chair and the agreement of terms of reference. Following a recruitment process over the summer, Home Office officials, the Home Secretary and I have met with prospective candidates for the chair of the inquiry, and we are now in the final stages of that appointment process. Most importantly, the chair must have credibility and experience to command the confidence of victims and survivors as well as the wider public, and meaningful engagement with victims and survivors is paramount. To support this, a dedicated panel of victims and survivors has been established, which will contribute to that chair's selection process. This is a critical milestone, and once an appointment is confirmed, the House will be updated at the earliest opportunity. Members across the House will understand that this process must be done properly and thoroughly. and that we must avoid a repeat of what happened with the efforts to appoint a chair of the original independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, when 3 chairs were appointed and subsequently withdrew from July 2014 onwards, prior to the eventual appointment of Professor Alexis Jay in 2016, a full 2 years after the original chair was named. We are determined to ensure that does not happen again. In line with the Inquiries Act, the appointed chair will play a central role in shaping the Commission's terms of reference. These will be published and subject to consultation with stakeholders, including victims and survivors. The inquiry is expected to run for 2 to 3 years, enabling it to examine a broad range of issues while honouring Baroness Casey's recommendation that it must be time limited to deliver answers swiftly, which has been a key request not just from victims and survivors, but also members across the House. The inquiry will begin identifying priority areas for review, conducting targeted local investigations, and reporting findings at both local and national levels. These reviews will be tailored to the specific context of each area and may involve a wide range of organisations, including children and family services, police, the CPS, and health and education providers, youth services, third sector organisations, and central government departments whose actions and decisions have affected what has happened at a local level. Where appropriate, the inquiry will issue recommendations at both a local and national level, and we will keep the House informed of all appointments and the terms of reference, as with the victims and publics, as soon as possible. The Government remains unwavering in its commitment to ensure that this inquiry is robust, transparent and capable of delivering truth, accountability and meaningful change. As we have said from the outset, we are determined to ensure that every survivor of grooming gangs gets the support and justice they deserve, that every perpetrator is put behind bars, and that every case, historic or current, has been properly investigated, and that every person or institution who looked the other way is held accountable, as that is a stain on our society and it should finally be removed for good. I commend this statement to the House.